How you going? This is bigSHow, theGod, and I'm into my next podcast with kind of a open session regarding goal setting. I mentioned it a while back, but thought I'd do a session on it. What I'm thinking now. So it's goal setting. Some of the practices I do, some of the development I've made in more recent times, and some understanding I've gotten of reviewing myself and reflecting. So I guess if I start with the notes I took when my plan is to have 3-year plans forecasted and set some 3-year plans, goals. And then there's a lot of work in that to do the steps to achieve those goals. And I have, on reflection, a lot of my goals tend to be a bit ambitious, if you like, for a reason. And I do that so that I continue to work on it as we go. Now, I'll show the structure I have of how I work through the steps to achieve the goals. So as I mentioned, I've done this process this is my second set now. So I'm into 6 to 9 years. So I'm in the 6th year. 3 years I set goals. Now we're coming up to them. Actually, no. And then I'm going into my next 3 years. So 2018 is when I started this set. And now I'm reflecting and reviewing, and I'm setting my next set of 3 years. So this is an important time to question my previous 3-year processes and methods and logic and reality, what actually happened, what I did, what I wanted to do. So it's a good time to question the processes thoroughly before setting on the next 3 years. And there's a reason for that. Now, the reasons for that are very clear, is that the goals I set 3 years ago, I went through a process and a list, and then the steps, and I've continued to do those for 3 years. But I didn't meet some of the goals. I still improved and got closer to them. But the reality is that I didn't meet them. I didn't exceed them. I exceeded some. So some I exceeded, some I didn't meet. Okay. So those are the bits I'm reviewing. Exceeded some, didn't meet others. So that's the debate I've got to have with myself. So was it why? And so there's whys in there. Why didn't you meet those? And why did you exceed those? And there's questions in both from my perspective. Now, when I reflect on it, the goals I set, some are like if you look at finances, financial goals, I set financial forecasting based on where I'm at now and what I view we'll have. And we reached those, and some of them we exceeded. That's what I mean by that type of goal. And then other parts within the financial goals we didn't meet, or I didn't do or achieve. Because it can be broken down into, some of it was it's like when I might have said I want to have 100,000 worth of savings here. I want to have paid off this much debt on the house. I want to have looked at a passive income or a secondary income. That's the goals for 3 years. Now, we might have saved more money than that, and we may have achieved that, but we haven't got the passive income, or we haven't bought a rental, or haven't got a business, secondary business, or whichever one this one was. These two met it, this one didn't. And then there's the whys in there. Because the reason we've got to go through this is it would make no sense that I would just put it down for the next 3 years. Do it again. Because I can feel good about these two, I suppose, which is a piece of it. And then let myself off the hook, I guess, or look at this one as being, oh yeah. There's more to it. There's a more complicated one of getting over stuff. And that's the point of this, right? So really, if we've got to get to the bottom of, I have to get to the bottom of why that was not either achieved or was not, or is it just not a goal of mine? The real questions. Is the timing out? So sometimes a forecasted goal, timing may not be right, and that's fine. Then that needed to be in there. The timing's not right. So that those are part of the review process before we set the goals again. So when is the timing right? Is it another 3 years? Maybe. So those are the bits I'm going through, right? So on that logic as well, is where in the steps did I not do? And then where in the steps did I do, but I didn't do enough? So with the process I have at the moment, you got a question. So was the setting of the goals an issue? Or was the distractions and the decision making to make the steps of this task or goal come closer? Were they too difficult, or was I not ready for it, or did I not explain enough did I not share it enough to other parties that are that are connected to this goal? Because they're a piece of it, depending on the goal, right? Because I'm not the ultimate decision maker potentially on this. I've got other people in my life that are part of this goal. So then have I not done enough here? And then what have I not done enough for myself? So there's another layer there. When I start when my goals involve others, which they generally don't, but there are pieces to that which I can look at, and that will help me achieve the goal, because I can then work on, well, now I need to stop avoiding this bit. What's the bits I'm really avoiding? It's kind of where I'm getting to. Where are my blind spots of the pieces that I'm avoiding? And where are the pieces that I need more work on myself, or some change, some adjustment, right? And what tends to happen with me, I've noticed, is I can prepare and plan, continue to prepare and plan and tweak and modify, but all those modifications and all those tweaks are no good. They might be good for me as an individual to keep me moving, but they're no good if I don't have the discussion or the drive or the push to either make the decision to do that, or have the conversation with the third party or the other people to push that goal through, right? So that's how I think I benefit the most out of these, because these reflect in goals I set for a career and goals I set for everything else. My same weaknesses will be apparent in those as well, in my opinion. So that's why I do invest quite a bit of time in self-analyzing this, tweaking processes that will push me further to doing it, which is like talking like this, is that if I'm struggling to have regular conversations with others based on the goal and based on the steps required to go to the goal, that's a problem, in my opinion. So if I have a project that I've prepared, planned thing, but amongst there's some difficulty or some challenges from others that can steer the ship down somewhere else, but not towards the goal, that's an issue, right? I've got to get the ship going back towards the goal, or change, or the goal's not a goal, or the plan's not correct. Don't get me wrong. I guess it's not a straight line all the time. There will be all those roadblocks. It's continuing to get through the roadblock, or watch out for influences that are steering the ship around in circles, or going away, or just stopping the boat. It just sits here now. The boat's here. We need the boat to be here. Well, a lot of people are quite comfortable where they are. They're happy with the boat here. Well, the boat needs to be here, buddy. And that's on me, because I'm the one influencing the boat. And what can I do about that? Well, this is part of it, is realizing that when I know the boat is stopped or not on track, on course, it's my responsibility to get the boat moving again or on course. Ain't nobody else's. I can say, oh, look, the guy down there, it's not happening. He doesn't agree with the plan. Fucking hell. That's awesome. That's us. Catch you later. We'll sit here then. Sit in the middle of the harbour on our boat. Happy where we are, apparently. And that's the kind of thing I've got to that's the part of my review process, to reflect on that. And it's brought into my attention with my own goals that's happening. There's no right and wrong in this, just it's happening. And then how do I go to another level of achievement or success or progress unless I deal with the pieces? And unless the goal was just not achievable, then that's okay. Then analyze that. Be open and honest about that bit. Because that's part of the adjustments. So the boat can keep moving even with the people within the boat changes. You make adjustments on the boat. But the boat has to keep moving. It's part of why I'm getting layered again into a goal can be here. We either reach it here or we get here. We still made the goal, but the goal is not singular. The goal can have a threshold to it, because some of the projects that we develop are if I keep using the word ambitious, they are trying to be right up here in a long term. So you may reach here. That's brilliant. In anticipation to get here. And what can happen is the timeline isn't quite connected. There's times when you will look at a goal and you're leapfrogging 2 or 3 processes to get to the goal. Whereas the process has to play out, and they can be intertwined by other forces. So other forces can influence the boat. That's it. The boat's still moving towards it. The boat can be delayed. That might be outside of me and outside of the other people. It can be from another force that's holding the boat here. But that doesn't mean the boat's not still moving and prepared and organized to then keep moving. You know what I mean? So there is that aspect of the goal setting. The piece I'm really trying to narrow down on is, through all that abstractness, is what part am I doing in it, and what's truthful and honest, and what I have not done or am not doing because of inherently something of me. If the boat stops because there's no wind, I don't control the wind. So there's generally always wind. Sweet. We can forecast and plan off that. Well, today there's no wind. So that's, things are out of my control are separate. I have to make sure that they are out of my control. And then what can I do? Well, I can still go, well, can we just row the boat instead? You know what I mean? There's still questioning we can do and still progress we can make through that, but it's still only what I can control. If the answer is no, and the answer continues to be no, and that's fine, then I can't stress out about stuff that's uncontrollable. Still a good point to understand the uncontrollables, and they're not fun to factor in, but they are there. So, where was I? So part of it is to, I guess, the framework of putting goals that are 3 years down track to myself and applying them. It really is a kind of a morphing thing, because as I pointed out, the goal can't just be too obtainable on a 3-year span, and then it can't be unobtainable on a 3-year span, So yeah, there is within some of the goals, a lot of development to do with the goals. And so when I reflect on the last 3 years of my goals, it's having them in the front of my mind, or very close here over the whole course. And so part of the reviews I've been doing is having them as part of my monthlies. So I break them down. So there's steps within the goals that I review every month. So we have the 3-year goals are there as a thing, and the steps that are required this month. For some of them might take 4 months to do a step. Some of them might take a piece. I might get 3 steps done in a month. They're all going in. They're all part of the review process each month. And then we get down to weekly stuff can be mixed amongst it. And then I get down into the daily. And so they all form in their own way my habits. My habits are directed towards those goals as best I can. And it gets down to almost a daily habit. So when I journal, or when I look at my calendar, or when I review something, a step, something that puts it really close to me of questioning and self-awareness of, is this towards my goals? Is this in front of me? And when I start to wave away, these processes bring me back in line again. Because with myself, I can have a really strong day where I've planned, I've journaled, I may have had a discussion on one of the goals on the step, got some really good information from it. It's taken me in a real, it's ticked a few boxes for that step to get to here, potentially, or has had a negative impact, so the opposite from that discussion. So it might be a step away from it, in a sense. Still information that I would have had to have, right? And so how I take that part, and then I break it down, I journal it, I go, okay, I then have to reflect and listen to what that person brought to the table, work it through again, meet with them again, confirm with them again, or do I have to go to another party to then get some more, to then come back here? Or do I have to be a bit more assertive to this person? Or do I let them have a day to think and leave them with a thought, so that we come back, get some more dialogue? Some of it is about getting them on the page, or if I think I've been as clear as I can about getting them on the page that I think we want to go on. If that's not the case, then I've got to accept that that's going to take some more time, or something else is going to have to happen there, right? So that's what I'm constantly doing on a daily basis, what I just mentioned there. And that's within all facets of the goals. So they're just a continuous streaming of that. And then I write down those findings and those self-awarenesses that I go through of what has or hasn't happened, what I can and can't do, and then question those and then do it again. So for some that can seem like a lot, but I've evolved into this, and I've noticed that was the same as when I'm at the gym. I know people would come and say, "Man, what are we doing?" And I might say, "We're going to do some of that, 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 some of that." And that's like, oh, what the hell? But when you start and you just go through the processes, if you're fit enough, you do them. And then you always, when you've done them, you always go, well, there's some adjusting we can do here. Similar sort of thing, And then that works the same with the opposite too. Is that looking at, probably back to if I stick with the gym thing, is being able to look at that. Is that now just a habit? When I talk about goals versus habits, I had a good saying once, is that don't mistake habits with hard work. Or don't confuse habits with hard work. I thought about that too. And that's a part of me. It's because I like doing that. Doesn't mean it's progressing me. Doesn't mean that habit, if I'm sticking to the habits, doesn't mean I'm progressing. Unless it's some hard work in there, in that habit. I'll argue this, it's hard work for me to not eat junk food and to not eat chocolate and biscuits and cakes and stuff. It's hard work for me still now. So that's hard work. And it's a habit. So that's fine. Now, going to the gym and saying, oh, I did 10 sets of this and it was easy. That's the point, right? Oh, it's a habit. I go there and I do that 10 sets and I leave. Well, that's in a sense, that's just the habit part. And we can do that within 3-year goals. Part of the goal might be to be here, and part of the steps would be to be consistent and go all the time and have regular trainings. Well, you're ticking that box. So that's, I feel all right, I did that. No, I did that. It's like doing a task every day. I do a task every day. I write it down. I did that. Didn't get you any closer to your goal, but it had the illusion that you were working towards that, right? And that's where the understanding of and reflecting and looking at, well, what is it that I'm actually doing towards the goal? If I want to lose some stomach fat, or I want to be a bit more something ripped, well, going to the gym and hopping on the elliptical for 20 minutes and then doing some bench press and leaving is probably not a step there. It's probably not going to work. It's made you feel better. It was better than nothing. I'll agree with all those statements, but it's not getting you to that on its own, or with that being the best. But there needs to be some other stuff. There needs to be some other stuff, I would think. Otherwise, you would have got there already, or you know what I mean. And if that is how you got there and that's what you achieved, well, bottle that up, because that's amazing. If you wrote your goals down and then you just achieve them by doing the same crap you're doing now, right? That doesn't make sense. Which leads me into the other part of the debate, is that what goal settings kind of means. And unfortunately, it means change. It means freaking work. It means debate. It means have difficult conversations with others and yourself. That's what it means. That's why we don't like doing it, right? It means questioning what you like, questioning why you're not doing that and why you are doing that. You know, that's why we don't like. That's why we don't like it. That's why it's taken, I'm freaking old. And I haven't gotten to those points. But they're a lot more interesting in this sort of framework. But then again, there's an emotional toll that starts happening, not just to yourself, but others around you. It can be emotional for the others, I have to say, from different aspects. People that achieve and make goals, it affects other people. It just does. And those are things that pop into existence that you didn't realize. So change is difficult for others as well. From my parents, from my wife, from my children, from my friends. Me going towards goals and going through systems and doing the sorts of changes affects those relationships. And yet I have relationship goals set. You're right. So in an interesting way too, some of my goal settings get affected by these changes, which I didn't foresee. Right? So you can have a goal to have a better relationship with friends as a goal, and even particularize it, different types of friends, or make new friends, whichever one. That's in there. And then you've got, I want to reduce drinking, for example, as something common. Well, what can happen is you stop the drinking, then the socializing of the friend thing is affected, right? In your mind, or in what you might perceive as a relationship step. You go, well, that was negative because now I'm not seeing that person because we're not drinking together anymore. Right. Well, they conflict with each other in that state of a relationship. If you view a relationship to that being your relationship, right? Is that the relationship you want to have? So you can set a goal down and realize, hold on, the goal is affected by reducing that affects that. Now, these other parties aren't interested in your journey of this anymore. That's the reason they were with you, or that's the reason you were there, right? So now we either change it, or we have difficult conversations with those people to work out how we can move forward. All requires work, right? So I think I've gotten my point across there of how I keep myself accountable over the 3 years within some sort of rationale, and how it's very motivating, I have to say, for me anyway, when I can go through this self process of achieving one of these 3-year goals, or even exceeding them. It's really transitional in how I measure progress. And then that just has such a lift for me, especially when I've reflected to this level, I've reviewed to this level, and then I've got the self-awareness of when I've had a a difficult conversation, when the boat was just sitting here on this particular goal, and I've got the boat moving again, and it has to be evidence-based. It's true. It's not just me thinking it's moved. It genuinely has moved. That point of the progress is so much more satisfying than anything I've done. When I've gone through this style of getting to that point, and it's ticked the boxes that I anticipated, and other things have popped into existence from that, for me and for the others around me, just from that act. It's like improving my environment. So it's every time my family's in here, it's opened them up more. It's, my friends, it opens them up for more, which is why I did it. And then every now and then something totally out of left field comes and pops in. Someone else asked me can you help me with that? Well, it didn't come out. That's cool. So I share some more. We keep, I have a different relationship with that person from me working on myself the most. So the biggest findings for me is processing it that way, the constant review, the constant reflection, constant self-analysis, the constant uncomfortable, the constant drive to wanting change, to experiencing change, to understand there's the emotional connection to that, the self-awareness that's happening at that time, and being able to be self-aware enough through this uncomfortable conversation to not leave the uncomfortable conversation when it needed to be said, to stay in it, knowing that this is required to get the boat moving or to keep the boat moving. It's not a bad way of putting it, actually. I didn't think of the boat moving. Might use that. And what happens, really, that's really good from this too, is that every time I learn something from this batch of stuff I've got here, goals are here, the processes, the steps, the daily habits, the way I approach things, gives me this nice calm and understanding, yet I'm taking on board the awareness for others, what's going on for that person through this, because I identified myself through that same subject, that how I would have felt back in the day. And I have that awareness now and able to provide that wisdom and peace to it, that through that, through all of that and learning a piece, I then get to inject that into the whole system. Because if it's a learned thing, I get to, in this whole thing, get to pull in something that I learned from a mentor or from a podcast on a subject. I get to pull that in, and it gets to validate or verify or get added to, and gets me to lift all those as a bit of a tool. As I mentioned before, me learning how to write my notes just a little bit better lifted all my, now when I read my notes, they're cleaner, they're sharper. When I share them with others, they're easier and cleaner than others. Before it was just write the freaking notes. But just learning that little piece then got to transcend across this whole structure I've got going and just enhance the whole lot. And that's just on a physical sense of communicating the communication. Then from me talking better and sticking to the subject and relaying what I'm actually trying to, what I'm trying to relay, or relaying the message in a slightly different way, with a bit of different emotion, or with 3 or 4 methods to explain the same subject, how that filters across for myself and for them. Because then I can rewrite how I write from any usage, from a little skill I pick up on. I dictated a message to my son instead of before I was typing it. I said, oh, here's a button. I said what I wanted to say and sent it. He responded back with his text. Sweet. You know, and I go, well, hold on. There might be a better way, because sometimes when I'm trying to get a message across, writing it down is a phrase. I don't want to have a 10-minute conversation with him because he's busy and he's thinking, and it's time delays and all this stuff. I want to say what I've got to say and then leave it. And he can listen to it when he wants or not. Right? So that bumped into my head of something to do as an option that may be a better way of relaying what I've got to say. And that benefits me as well, because I'm able to get it off my thing rather than I'm writing this thing and rephrasing it and making sure it's not taking them on a different path or misunderstood. It's not misunderstood as much, maybe, depending on how complex I'm getting. But I started with just some real basic replies that just had a little piece in it. And then that will probably evolve from that, which heightens me again, you see. So all these things heighten what I'm currently doing. So I'm very optimistic about the next 3 years. Very. And I was optimistic with the last 3 years. So that hasn't changed. But every time I've given myself reasonable evidence, and lots of it that support the process I'm going on, it uplifts me every day to do those daily basic habits and challenge myself through those daily habits. I've got a meeting soon. I'm going to prepare myself for that. And they will all be progressive steps to the goals that I've set. Now, if they don't have a piece in there, or they don't have that sort of intention in them, what's the point? Right? Now, I could argue some of the things just don't have a point. You know, if I'm going to a job and there's a task I've got to do, that's just a mundane task. Save this like that and send that to somebody. I'll argue that that's just a task of doing. And I accept that people have those all day, and I accept I'll have a few of those. And you don't have intention in that. It's just a task to be done. But if you're preparing for a meeting, or if you're preparing for another task, and in that task it's going to have these intention, my intention is, it's intentional, then that task becomes takes a lot more life into it. It's more enjoyable, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's more uncomfortable. You're going to get more from it. You know, a lot more from it, from doing, and it seems basic. that I'm going to meet with these 10 people this morning, and I'm going in with some intention. I've got a plan. I've got a thing. It's not on the top of my mind now. What's on top of my mind is how I interact with them when I'm there. I'm going to get the point across that I'm going to get across. I'm going to work on that bit. It's not the total focus of my thing. So now I'm more engaged from doing the work prior or during or before, or of having an intentional mindset. And I've got tools in place to get me there. So as an example of that, the past me, all I would have been thinking about was this conversation I want to have and how it's going to go, and that if I do and if I don't say, and what should I say and what shouldn't I say. All that yin and yang is going on. And sometimes that still happens. But trust me when I say I practice it to the point that I'm prepared and planned and well enough and have the tools in my hand, from handwritten notes to whatever question gets thrown, to know this is what I want to relay, or this is what I want to get across. And however way it shifts and shapes, I'm still want to get this across. It makes no difference to the result, because I've done the planning, I've done the preparing. I'm now just going to execute this. So that mindset of intention is in there, because it just gets done. As an example of me, we might have had a certain person ain't there, which well, I'll put it off. I'm not going to say it then. It doesn't change my intention. When you're intentional, it doesn't change it. He's not here. And are there others here? Yes. Oh, well, they're going to learn it then. They're part of the process too. Oh yeah, but John's not here, so it's not worth it. Okay. You can have that mindset. We can have, I'm going to share it with you guys. That gives them time to digest it and think it. It doesn't have to be some wonderful presentation of everybody with everybody in the same room. Now, if the meeting's postponed, it makes no difference. It's just, all right, when's the next one? When is it? Okay, it's not happening till another month. Well, that's a problem. So deal with the problem. So, well, hold on, I need to get this across. So if that's happened, you've got to assert yourself. Or you can just go, oh well, I can't control. But you have to have done both. That's what I'm trying to say there. If I haven't asserted myself, then I haven't done what I could. So I assert myself, maybe, or I hang it, and then it's still uncontrollable. That's different. What's out of my control is out of my control. The guy's gone and he's left for a month, or two of them, whatever the situation is. That's definitely uncontrollable. But what's not uncontrollable is about my intention. My intention is to get this across. So then the format changes of how I get this across to you. Fine. So then I've got 5 other channels or ways of content of getting it to. This is what I wanted, my ideal one. Got it. Well, that ain't happening. So just because that format ain't happening, you can either, the option is to wait another month or 2 months, say, I don't know, whatever the thing is, or you do other bits to get that message across and explain that through. Well, you have to do it the harder way. And those are the bits that I've lacked, and that because I'm looking without intention, without any drive, without those types of things. Those are where we settle with. Or those are the results. So that's my push for the next 3 years in a nutshell, is really doing more of that and enhancing that some more, and pushing the steps knowing the steps that I didn't achieve 3 years ago. And some of those are brought forward into the next 3-year plan. And some of them are uncontrollable. Some of them I didn't have I've got it. But challenging those areas and pushing more to parts that I'm either not good at, I don't like, are uncomfortable, and I have to keep practicing and ensuring that those are happening. And then I'm going to see that these here that seem this high, the boat should move towards that. That gives me a reasonable chance. I've got to take out the uncontrollables. I got to take out, if I've set the benchmark too high, all that stuff makes a difference, but it still requires the same intention, it requires invoking the intention, invoking the will, the push, the continuous questioning and pushing towards moving the boat. But there's lots involved in that. So I'm glad I got that to share that with us, because I can reflect on this and then see how much of this I progress with in the next few years. Oh.